Okay, so let's try to imagine the world in, say, the year 1286.
Right.
You have no way to accurately measure time, and if your eyesight starts to fail you, especially if you're a reader or a writer, your career is basically over.
It's just done. And then, almost out of nowhere, two simple objects enter that world.
One is curved glass for your eyes, and the other is a set of whirring gears that rings a massive bell on the hour.
And these two technologies, they seem totally unrelated, right? One helps with a physical problem, the other organizes the environment.
But together, they just fundamentally changed everything about human capability and how society was structured.
Absolutely. Today we're going to get into these medieval game changers, eyeglasses and the mechanical clock.
We want to show you the ingenious mechanisms behind them and reveal why they weren't just clever tricks. They were essential foundations for the world we live in now.
Let's start with sight. I think that's a good place to begin.
Yeah.
Before the 1280s, if you were, say, a scholar or a monk, you had a hard deadline on your career.
What do you mean?
Well, as you got into your late 40s, maybe 50s, your ability to read the fine print in manuscripts would just naturally decline.
Right, that's the condition we call presbyopia now. Your eye's lens gets stiff.
Exactly. And for a medieval scholar, that meant decades of knowledge and wisdom were suddenly at risk of being wasted because they physically couldn't see to read anymore.
So what did they do? Did they have any alternatives?
Well, the substitutes they had were pretty inconvenient, almost comical.
Like what?
People would try using polished quartz or these little glass spheres filled with water. They worked like a basic magnifying glass.
But I can't imagine trying to work with a wet glass ball balanced over some priceless manuscript.
It was so cumbersome, and you couldn't use it for long, focused hours of work. It just wasn't sustainable.
So the breakthrough comes from Italy.
It does. And the innovation wasn't just using glass, it was figuring out the geometry,
The shape.
the shape. Someone realized if you ground glass into a specific curved shape, what we now call a lens, and you put it in a frame, you could radically improve vision.
And they were using convex lenses specifically.
Yes, and what's so fascinating is that the people who needed them were farsighted, and the convex shape is the perfect solution for that particular problem.
Okay, so help us visualize that. What does a convex lens actually do to the light?
Think of it as a tiny, clear hill. It's thicker in the middle than it is at the edges.
Got it.
So when light rays pass through your eye, if you're farsighted, that light is focusing behind your retina. That's why everything up close is a blur.
And the lens corrects that.
Exactly. The convex lens acts as a guide. It gently bends those light rays inward before they even enter your eye.
Oh, so it ensures they hit the retina in exactly the right spot.
Precisely. It's basically pre-focusing the light for your eye.
That must have felt like an absolute miracle, but I'm guessing it wasn't cheap.
Far from it. I mean, this was the absolute peak of material science for its time.
Venice, right. They were the leaders in glassmaking.
Unchallenged, they made this incredibly clear, consistent glass called cristallo. And since every single lens had to be hand-ground to the perfect curve,
It was incredibly expensive.
a luxury item.
Right.
The frames might have been simple wood or lead or bone, but the lenses themselves were a high-tech status symbol for the very wealthy.
So the impact, once these were available, what changed?
It was profound. It fundamentally changed what you could call the economics of intelligence.
Explain that.
Before eyeglasses, intellectual progress relied on one generation teaching the next and then, retiring.
Because their eyes gave out.
Right. But now, you suddenly had skilled scholars who could keep reading, writing, and mentoring for decades longer.
It's like giving the entire intellectual world a massive career extension all at once.
And that surge of older, experienced minds happened at the same time that manuscript production was increasing across Europe. It just fueled the growth of universities.
And drove up literacy rates because that physical barrier of aging eyes was finally gone.
And it didn't stay in Italy for long. Thanks to all the trade networks, the technology just spread like wildfire.
So eyeglass makers started popping up in places like London and Paris.
Exactly. London, Paris, Bruges. And as it spread, you saw innovation in the frame designs.
Right, some of the early ones were just handheld or they had ribbons to tie them around your head.
Yeah, and all that competition pushed the glass industry to get even better, to make even clearer, more perfect materials for the lenses. The need for better vision actually drove industrial progress.
Incredible. So while eyeglasses helped us see the world of knowledge, another invention came along to help us organize it.
The mechanical clock.
Let's shift from sight to time. Before this, telling time was, well, It was a pretty frustrating business.
It was very approximate. You had the sundial, which is great, but only if the sun is out. Useless at night or on a cloudy day.
And then there were water clocks, the clepsydra.
Which were notoriously inaccurate. You know, if the temperature changed, the water would flow differently. You had to constantly refill and adjust them. Time was always relative.
The mechanical clock changed all of that. It was developed in monasteries around the same time as eyeglasses.
And its genius was its consistency. It offered precise, repeatable measurement, totally independent of the sun or the weather.
Now, it's important to remember what these first clocks actually looked like. They were not what you're picturing.
No, not at all. They were massive, intricate machines. They took up entire rooms in church towers.
And critically, they did not have faces or hands.
Their only purpose was to use a system of weights and gears to ring enormous bells, signaling the hour to the whole town.
So if you really want to understand the genius here, you have to look at the heart of the machine, the escapement.
This is where the real magic happens. It's where craftsmanship met mathematics.
Okay, so think about the clock's power source. It's a huge, heavy weight hanging on a rope inside the tower.
Right. And if you just let that weight go, gravity pulls it straight to the floor in a few seconds.
All the energy is released at once. Worth it. Done.
The escapement is the ingenious device that prevents that from happening. It's like the clock's brake and accelerator all in one.
How does it work?
It's a mechanism that constantly catches and then escapes the teeth of a gear. It stops the movement for just a fraction of a second.
And then lets it go again.
Exactly. So the weight can only fall in these tiny, controlled, regular increments.
And that constant stopping and starting is what creates the ticking sound we all know.
It's the mechanism that converts the raw downward pull of gravity into controlled, measured steps.
And making one required unbelievable precision.
Oh, absolutely. The people who made these were part blacksmith, forging huge gears, and part mathematician, calculating the exact ratios needed for it to be accurate. Clockmakers became these highly respected professionals.
And their first job was for the church.
For the monasteries.
Yeah.
Monks had a very strict schedule of prayers, the canonical hours, day and night.
And keeping that schedule must have been really hard in the winter, when it's dark and cloudy.
The mechanical clock gave them that reliable, loud signal they needed to make sure every monk was awake and in the chapel at 2 in the morning or 4 in the morning, no matter what.
It brought order to spiritual life first, but then it moves from the monastery into the public square.
And that's when it starts to reshape all of society. Once towns started putting clocks in their church towers, that bell wasn't just for the monks anymore. It was for everyone.
It was a massive social synchronization.
The whole village started living by the same schedule. The bell told you when to start work, when to take a break, when to go home.
An entire community's daily life was suddenly organized by this external artificial rhythm, not the sun.
And the economic impact was immediate.
This is a huge one. Before the clock, you were usually paid for the piece of work you finished.
A pair of shoes or a harvested field, right? The amount of work.
But once the bell started ringing out the hours, time itself became a measurable commodity.
And that meant laborers could start being paid based on the number of hours they worked.
An hourly wage. That changes everything.
It completely transforms the economy, and it introduces conflict, because now an employer has a real incentive to watch your punctuality, to make sure you're working every minute you're being paid for.
Time is literally money.
Exactly. It brought in new ideas of accountability and efficiency. The clock forced society to think about the value of human labor in a totally new way.
And that leads to this huge psychological shift in how people even thought about time.
Before the clock, time was seen as circular, tied to the seasons, the sun. It was organic.
Flexible.
The clock shatters that. It presents time as a linear sequence of identical measurable units. An hour, a minute, a second.
So time isn't just a repeating cycle anymore. It's a resource that flows forward, and you can either use it or waste it.
Which is why punctuality suddenly becomes so important. Society gets more structured. Records start noting not just the day, but the exact hour an event happened.
And the technology just kept getting better. Early clocks were huge because they needed those heavy weights.
But then came the big innovation. The coiled spring.
Right, replacing weights with springs is what allows for miniaturization.
You go from a clock that fills a room to a clock on your wall and then eventually a watch in your pocket.
And that drive for smaller, more accurate machines required better tools, a better understanding of things like friction.
Advancements that directly fed into the complex machinery of the Industrial Revolution later on.
So when we look back at both of these inventions, eyeglasses and clocks, they really share a common thread.
They do. They both came from this new era of growing technical skill.
And they both required incredibly precise manufacturing, whether you're grinding a lens or cutting a gear.
They were tools that let humans overcome their natural limits. Eyeglasses conquered the limit of aging sight.
And the clock conquered the limit of time's invisibility. It gave us power to measure and organize our lives separate from nature.
And they both started out as these exclusive luxuries for the wealthy and powerful.
Before the technology spread and became totally standard, changing how everyone experiences the world.
Their legacy is just everywhere. Eyeglasses laid the foundation for telescopes, microscopes, every modern camera lens.
And the mechanical clock is the direct ancestor of every timing device we use. The quartz crystal in your phone, the sensors in every computer network, it all started there.
These 13th century inventions didn't just solve a couple of problems. They showed humanity how to use technology to structure and enhance life.
A lesson we are definitely still learning today.
See you next time.